I want to address the two most recent mass shooting events in America. If you're trans, you know what I'm talking about. I think this is important to talk about, and as uncomfortable as it is, because the amount of hate and disinformation online surrounding mass shootings and gender identity is out of control. So before we get started, be a doll, hit the like button. So on August 27th, 2025, Charlie Kirk said on social media, if you are crazy enough to want to hormonally and surgically change your sex, you have a mental disorder and you are too crazy to own a firearm. So, to be clear, he was wrong. Gender identity and mental health are two different things, but delusional people on the right pretend that these two things are connected when they're not. So what Charlie said was not only incorrect, but it was hateful and intended to harm people. All major medical associations in the country, along with doctors, psychiatrists, therapists, sociologists, gender experts, and endless others, agree that not only is transitioning safe and effective for trans people, but it is also life-saving. Charlie Kirk also advocated for less gun control, and 2 weeks later, after his hateful and evil statement about trans people, he was killed in a shooting on September 10th. The shooting perpetrated by a white cisgender male. And in the moment he died, he was spreading disinformation on gender identity and mass shootings. This murder is a perfect example of the biggest issues we face in America, which are false information spread by Republicans and far-right cult organizations like Turning Point USA, Heritage Foundation, and Alliance Defending Freedom. The next one, a lack of common sense gun laws. And the reason we don't have those is because over and over, Republicans have not voted on these in Congress. They refuse to do any sort of common sense gun laws. And the last thing, white supremacy and hateful, illogical, nonsensical beliefs, like transphobia and homophobia. These are fears that are not rooted in reality. So now let's go over the facts of mass shootings. In the US, a study was done from 1966 to 2024. A large majority of shooters were cisgender males. I believe 97%, followed by cisgender women, and lastly, trans people. There was only one trans mass shooter in a 60-year period. Based on this actual data, trans people are the least likely to commit a mass shooting. Cis women are 4 times as likely, but are still a very small fraction when compared to cisgender male shootings. So if you include the most recent 2 mass shootings in the US, so there was one just the other day in Rhode Island, and then there was one last year, or I believe it was last year, in the Catholic Church. So let's say I include those in these numbers. That still would only make 3 total mass shootings by trans people in 60 years. And they would still only make for 1% of mass shootings. So we're still looking at 96% cisgender male mass shootings. Trans people would still be the smallest demographic for these. So So both of the shooters in these recent events had a long history of mental illness and family conflicts, police reports, things like that. But both people were still easily able to obtain firearms. And that's the biggest red flag to me in this situation, is we need to have more strict and common sense gun laws. Many of our mass shooters in America have long histories of mental health problems, and men are less likely to do things like mental health counseling or even admit that they have a mental health problem in the first place. So the authoritarian's tactic is to bully the smallest demographics first. Anger and outrage towards trans people is being manufactured by Fox News and the company that it owns in order to help manufacture this outrage. This is all a distraction from the fact that the real issue here is a combination of a lack of mental health help for these people and a lack of common sense gun law. There is also a refusal by Republicans to admit that cisgender men are massively responsible for most of our mass shootings. No other group comes anywhere near them. Cisgender men are dominating mass shootings, and many of them also identify as MAGA or white supremacist or Nazi. Even the most recent shooting in Rhode Island by a trans person, she was a self-proclaimed Nazi far-right conspiracy theorist. She had Nazi tattoos. That had a long history of that. So that right there is a major indicator of delusion and mental health problems, and an inability to distinguish reality from fantasy. We also see this delusion when it comes to gender. Republicans are strongly denying that gender is not binary, even though this is a well-known fact and has been for a while. We see the denial of reality when it comes to the right denying experts. We see this with vaccines as well, denying the reality and evidence that vaccines are not harmful and save lives, but they refuse, and stupidly, they die of a disease like measles that is easily and safely preventable. So again and again, Republicans refuse to pass legislation on common sense gun laws, and every day Americans are dying from mass shootings. They refuse to address the mental health crisis among cisgender men. There is a complete denial of what the actual problems are. And the longer this goes on, the more people will continue to die horrifically in mass shootings. And I'm sorry if I sound so harsh, but it's important we talk about the realities of these things. And I don't mean to offend anybody who has been traumatized by these events, because it's very, very sad as well. So thank you guys for listening. Please like this video, leave your comments, subscribe to stay updated, and I will be back very, very soon. Bye, guys.